So, dear friends, we're here introducing the team, and I'm lucky enough to be here with Mark Bogues, and we met 11 years ago, actually in Plum Village, the home of Thich Nhat Hanh, and we've had a really beautiful journey together over the last 11 years, and I just wanted to ask Mark, who Mark was in the NHS in management in the National Health Service in the UK, and I just wanted to ask him his journey from where he was in the NHS to where you are now, Mark.
Thanks, Ian. Listen, it's so nice to have this opportunity just for us to chat and to spend a little bit of time together. So seeing the journey, started in when we talk about a journey, it's hard to know exactly when something started, but sometimes along that journey we can see very clear points, where decisions are made or where we take a turn, in maybe an unexpected direction. So for me, growing up, I was very career driven. Wanted to be successful, wanted all the things that went with success. In a sense, I always remember talking to my sister, and I was a big fan of Excel spreadsheets when I was young, and
Still are, aren't you?
still am. Yeah. And I used to spreadsheet everything. I had this whole kind of like I was working out what it was, how much it would cost to live a kind of quality of life that I wanted to live, and I had all things like it's the annual ski trip in it, the holidays, the golf weekends, the cars, everything that I thought was a reasonable standard of living. And I remember sharing it with my sister at the time, and she was like, really, is that like a reasonable standard? You like a golf holiday, do 2 or 3 times a year, a ski holiday, a regular holiday, and so I had this a material aspiration for a quality of life, a good quality of, for me, what I thought was a good quality of life. And also for security as well. I was worried about my future in a sense, wanted a pension, wanted to have security in the future, and to be able to live a good life for the rest of my life. And so I was very career driven and wanted to get up, and for a long time I started off working, my previous role was as a pharmacist, and initially I started off in community pharmacy, and community pharmacy is a kind of it's quite a flat structure in community pharmacy. Quite quickly I was manager of a store, and then if I looked forward, that I really couldn't go any higher, and that was a bit depressing for me. I needed to see more progression, so I ended up moving into the NHS, in the hospital pharmacy. And in hospital pharmacy, the sky, I suppose, or the ceiling is much higher. That the way that you can work your way up, and each time you work your way up, you think, well, okay, I'm going to have more money, and I'm going to have more control, and my life will be easier, and I'll be, so I went about trying to do that. And it's kind of culminated, always kind of always did I see myself as a leader. When I look back on it, I was and maybe what my previous vision of what a leader was, I kind of saw myself in leadership positions, those, trying to take responsibility, trying to be innovative, trying to lead the direction in any of the teams that I was involved in. And then ultimately I ended up moving from where I lived in Belfast to the UK we're just outside London for a career move. And this was a strategic career move where I had, because in Northern Ireland, the opportunities are a little bit less available. And I moved to England in a management position, and it was a big management position. I was lead pharmacist for 3 different dispensaries across 3 different hospitals. Now, again, I mean, not to oversell that in a sense, because there was many people above me, but I had a group of people then below me and responsibility for many things. And my idea was that I would move over to the UK or over to England for a couple of years, and then I would move back to Northern Ireland. I would just bounce back at a higher, this kind of classic, move from one organization to another organization and then bounce back again at a higher level. And that actually, it influenced so much even of the way I viewed things. I always kept even work friends a little bit at a distance, because I always had some notion that at some point I would be managing even my friends and colleagues, so at some point I maintained a kind of a separation between my personal, who Mark was personally, and who Mark was professionally, so, and this was even how it filtered into Facebook and how I managed my posts and stuff, and it's very, it's energy, it's very difficult to maintain actually, that persona, that projection of how I wanted people to see me.
The chameleon effect.
Hmm?
The chameleon effect.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one now, but yeah,
Oh,
but certainly. And then
I just
so
made it up.
very creative.
I resonated with it.
So I was in, and whenever we go to a management position, or a new position, we want to get results. And what I recognize, I don't know if anyone else is the same. I don't, maybe if this resonates with you, you can let me know. But so I was concerned with, I needed to get results. I was going to be in this position for 2 years, because you have to be in a job for 2 years, because if you're in it any less, people are wondering why you didn't stay so long. So 2 years is your kind of minimum. So in that time, you need to jet. And I didn't want to be there I was just bouncing back, hopefully. So if I start to talk too quickly, let me know, because when I get excited and or passionate, then I can speed up. So I but then the thing, in an organization, there's results and there's KPIs, and I was given my set of KPIs, and my job was then to achieve those KPIs, because if I didn't achieve them, then how could I go to my next interview and say, yes, I was very successful in my last post, And the truth of the post was, it was very difficult. It was I could see in that post, and I came up with this idea of whether I thought that there was a strategy of management by saturation, where if you looked at my number of responsibilities, I'm not sure anyone could have achieved them. I had so many, So when I looked at my desk, or I looked at what was in my inbox, there was always many, many things that were not tied off, many loops that were not being maintained. So there's things that were going well, but there was many things that I couldn't put my attention on to take care of. So I was always vulnerable. If my manager had come along, or my seniors had come along, they could always find something on my desk to where I was weak, where I was vulnerable, where I was not keeping up. And this led me to stay long hours, because I was always afraid, that somehow I would be exposed and this would be brought out. So I would stay long hours at my desk, and I also had a lack of confidence in myself, and this was also part of it, that I thought couldn't, whatever I lacked in terms of ability, I made up for in terms of like raw energy, to give, So it's like, even some idea at the back of my mind that someone might say, yeah, but really he works hard, and that was one of the kind of labels that I give myself. Mark works hard, so this, a lot of this became clear to me later on, in a sense, more clear to me later on, when I went out to Plum Village in 2014, and I was just recently married, and this was the kind of the start, in a sense. Before, I could work 12 hours, 14 hours a day, and it was no problem, And as soon as I got into a serious relationship, because when I was working 14 hours a day, I would just go home, I would get something to eat, I would go to bed, and I would get up the next day and I would start again. Yeah. And then suddenly, although my wife never put pressure on me and never had an expectation, in my mind, suddenly when I was in that relationship and I had that responsibility, then I felt pulled between two areas, between my work and between my home life. And then that started to create tension in me. Yeah. And just within in a new relationship, and we were trying to start a family, and this was quite a stressful time. So I'm quite an A-type personality, and I kind of like on my spreadsheet, I would have lots of columns for what were the key factors that would influence, for us, how we would start a family, in terms of exercise, eating well, and spending quality time together, and one of these factors was stress management. And I chatted to my brother. My brother, at that time, he was a psychotherapist, and he said, well, I would recommend that you either do an 8-week John Kabat-Zinn course in mindfulness. What's the name of his course again that he offers?
Mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Mindfulness-based stress reduction, yeah. Or go to Plum Village. He'd been to Plum Village in 2009. He said, or go to Plum Village for a week. And in my mind and my wife's mind, we were like, 8 weeks in this was in April. I was like 8 weeks in a kind of a rainy spring, part of England, doing this 8-week once a week course, or the south of France in the Dordogne in the springtime. I was like, man, this is really a easy option. So so we went to Plum Village for 1 week, and we'd actually, at that time, I'd already given up my job, in a sense. We'd just got married. We'd gone on a honeymoon. We'd gone on this honeymoon to South America and we had this kind of like ideal, beautiful honeymoon we were going on, and this would be, we would, if we found, it was very idyllic in the sense, if we'd found somewhere in South America on the beach, like a cafe or something, or a bar on the beach, then maybe we would just stay there, and we would buy this bar, and we would have this lifestyle. And so so I'd done 3 years in my previous post, already at this stage, and I had the results. So I'd kind of stopped the job, gone on this kind of long honeymoon, and the idea was when I came back that I would just pick up the career again, if I needed to, if the beach, if the cafe on the beach, the bar on the beach didn't work out, I could come back and pick up my career again, And so we went to Plum Village. So we actually were quite free. When we came back from traveling, I didn't have a job. We hadn't, my house was rented out, so we were staying with family. So we had nothing holding us back, in a sense. So we went to Plum Village for 1 week, and it was wonderful. It was amazing. It was, I've had there's been a spiritual part of my life for quite some time. Meditation has been something I've been doing since my early 20s. having an introspective personality. One of the two of the things that were very clear to me when I was growing up was to one thing was know thyself and to thine own self be true. It's two very key linked things. So it's kind of, this was like going to Plum Village for a week, lit that spiritual dimension of my life again, and it's a very joyful place, and this really resonated with me. So we were there for a week, and we decided, do you want to stay for another week? And we were like, yeah, okay, we stay for one more week, and then there was a 21-day retreat coming up, and someone said it might have been Ty's last retreat. I'm conscious of time. I know that a little bit we said we would talk for 15 minutes, but
Maybe we could you could wrap up in a nice way, and then we can actually carry on with yeah, we could carry on with almost part two because it's so interesting.
but I think you're very kind and generous in your words and encouraging. So I'll try and wrap up a little bit around. So we went to Plum Village. Long story short, we went for 1 week, and we stayed for, I think for me it was, for both of us actually in total it was 7 years. And so it always reminds me of kind of 7 years in Tibet. And there's also there's this a notion of 7 years where every cell in your body is replaced. Not quite true, but so my professional healthcare friends will remind me it's not every cell in your body is replaced within 7 years, but there's a kind of a sense that the majority are.
Mm.
So this period of 7 years, and during this time I actually ended up going back. I saw a lot of my habit, of my way of being, of the difficulties that when I was in my ambition, my career ambition, and you give me a set of KPIs, and you said, okay, now you have to achieve these KPIs, and how like I wasn't mean, and I wasn't I wasn't nasty, but I wanted to achieve these KPIs, and I would design the system or redesign a little bit the system, and then I would have to put pressure down the system. And the system was, in many ways, it's the NHS is struggling for staffing numbers, struggling in many different ways, and there's me applying pressure to meet a set of KPIs, so that not in a sense that, so one of the KPIs was like turn around prescriptions in 30 minutes, outpatient prescriptions in 30 minutes. So if it was in 30 minutes and 30 seconds, it didn't meet target. If it was 29 minutes and 59 seconds, it met target. So the impact for the patient, I mean, the KPIs can be beneficial, in terms of knowing where you are and anchoring something around something which is helpful. But in this for me, the KPI was not so much about how the patient would experience it. The KPI was how I would experience it, how I would benefit from it, So I put pressure down that system, and I caused, I was part of a machine. I was an element of a machine that created suffering, created difficulty, created stress for the people. So we had this aspiration to help people, but in that process, in that system, we caused pain for the members of staff. And I had this, so I actually went back to my place of work, and I apologized to express my regret to the people, I had two key managers that were below me, and expressed regret to them for my unskillfulness, for in my focus, and my misperception, and in my desire, in my ambition. I created difficulty for them, and I could talk about this because it's so rich in a sense about how my management style, how my leadership style, was very limited in its understanding, and how in that limited understanding, I was part of creating quite a significant part of difficulty for other people,
Mm.
and I had regret for that. And being in Plum Village actually really exposed me to a different, more integrated, more yeah, more yeah, more. It sounds like an awful thing to say, but more enlightened. Enlightenment is always enlightenment of something. So it's not like this
Mm.
grand. Like I didn't come back as the Buddha in a management, position. But it was enlightened of. I saw what was happening, and I saw that there was a better way of operating, of engaging, of interacting, of being, that was more helpful. And yeah, it's been a very deep aspiration for me ever since to to be that more important than anything, to be that, to deepen that, because it's not something that we can achieve and attain and hold and say, okay, that's now mine. It's something which is alive as well, which is continually unfolding, which always needs our attention and our care in order to, it's like the sun and the flower, so the flower always needs the sun in order to continue to unfold.
Mm.
So we need to continue to look and to give ourselves the good conditions that we need, the community, the people around us, that can support us, in order to in order to continue that and to share that then with others. I've been very fortunate in what I've received, from my parents, from my ancestors, from my society. A very privileged education, opportunities. I've received a lot from my teachers, whether they be teachers at school or teachers in a spiritual tradition like Thich Nhat Hanh. And I'm very clear for me that the Buddha and Thich Nhat Hanh, they're not religious figures or figures to be put on a pedestal. They are teachers. They had something that was of value to share, and they shared that. And the pedestal isn't something to worship, but there's an element of respect that we offer to our teachers, so that to reflect our appreciation, our gratitude for what we've received. Yeah, and also our friends, so that recognizing what people like yourself have offered
Mm.
to me in terms of an accompaniment. Like the Buddha was asked, this classic one about where friends 50% of the path was community, good friends 50% of the path, and the Buddha said no, it's 100% of the path. So yeah, and so yeah, being supported a lot,
Mm.
and have a deep aspiration to be part of offering something back. So I'll finish there. No, over time.
Mm.
Once
Well,
it gets
I mean,
about something about it.
it's so rich, and there's so much coming up for me because we know each other, pretty well. And I think it's worth, I mean, we normally do the 15 minutes, but I think what we can do is like, we can kind of trim parts of this. So I think it's just worth. I just want to say what's coming up for me. A couple of things really. One, I know you're a big fan of like Noam Chomsky, and as you were speaking there, it's kind of like, it's coming up for me as well. As you were speaking, 14 hours a day, and that, and Noam Chomsky talks about, the wage slave, that is caught. So, and it's like being caught in the self, which is a key part of the teachings from Thich Nhat Hanh, of this attachment to self. So I'd be interested just to for you to express that a little bit, the kind of a, the attachment to self, which was driving you.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and I'll try and answer it in a little bit shorter. But because there's many ways, once you start, I was often actually, I was very analytical and still am. I was always looking for an answer, and I would research things that people always looked at me and they were like, if you wanted to know what the best something was, ask Mark, because he's gone and he's
I've done that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's probably spent a lot of time looking to, and what I found was actually over time was that things don't, we're looking, putting energy in to find a singular answer, and what my experience was is the more energy you put into something, the more it actually expands out, in a sense. It gets more complex rather than simplified. And for me, this is actually part of my experience, is that things are so complex. So difficulties and challenges are so complex that the solution can't be as complex as the problem. The solution has to be much simpler than the difficulty, if you like, or the thing that we're trying to solve. So for me, so I'll try and simplify it a little bit and talk to a little bit what comes up for me is this idea of ambition, this idea of security, this idea of achieving. I put my body through and my mind through quite a lot. In working 14 hours a day, I pushed myself, and it was interesting. Like, I had never been, one of my labels that I give myself, and these labels are labels of oppression, personal oppression. Mark never gets sick. Mark always turns up. Mark never let you down. And I never had, in my whole entire professional career, maybe 15 years, I can't even remember how long I worked, because I took such a long break in Plum Village. I'd never had a sick day, and that wasn't because I didn't get sick. It's because I've been very blessed. My body is overall has been healthy, and I've I've gone to some extent to take care of it, to try and take care of it over my time. But I pushed my body, and so that idea of even my personal experience of a self.
You can probably hear that's my mindful bird clock in the background.
That's wonderful.
Just so everybody knows that it's not a real bird.
I thought it might have been a kettle. But so that idea of it, and that idea of a self, even in management, I saw how much I was protective. Like I covered dispensaries, but I had colleagues that covered clinical. I had colleagues that covered production, aseptic, and we shared to some extent. We shared staff. We shared people. And I was very protect, because I had my KPIs to achieve. Then I would try and protect my resources, and people, in an organization like this, we were very often understaffed. I think even our staffing levels were very like the minimum staffing levels, and then with all the pressures in the system, you have people going off ill, so there's always gaps in the system. So every day you'd go in, you would know that there would be be trying to take some of your resources, some of your staff away, and at that point you're like, I'm already at a low. And part of my protection actually was I used to keep a spreadsheet of my staffing levels it was kind of something I kept up my sleeve, that I could take out if I was ever criticized. Then I could show the stats on how often we were fully staffed, versus how often we were understaffed. And this was all, I had some pride in this too, because we were maintaining our KPIs, or achieving our KPIs, but also with like these low staffing levels, so that idea. So if you look at an organization, even an organization as if we're looking at ourselves as one body. There was I was like the heart, but I was like keeping blood. I was like, and the kidneys were going, hey, I need blood to, not get like, and I would be saying, no way, I need that. I need all those red blood cells. You can't have any, it's like, I've got a job to do. And so that kind of idea of separation, and competition between departments was also, and that's based on it's also based on a self, on a protecting, on a I need to secure resources for me and for my team, so even that I've seen very clearly in Plum Village, where if anything that you put my in front to, you will suffer. When it's like, even if it's like my cup, that's like my cup. And I need now to, if someone else said that's my cup, it's like if it breaks, oh, you've broken my cup. I've broken my cup. It's kind of somehow when we acquire something, my wife, my friends, my house, my car, if anyone damages my car, anyone, threatens my wife, myself, so we need to be careful when we attach. It's not to say that we don't, enjoy our cup, but it can create difficulties. I'm not quite sure that I answered your question.
I think you did. It was because it's kind of like this. Yeah, and this is where we could just talk for so long on this subject, but it's kind of like, this again, this attachment to self, and then what we attach, like you've just skillfully mentioned, and all of these things, on top of each other, bring a huge amount of suffering, in our life. And I think we're both similar with with our journey of being able to just continually keep letting go of things, of whether that's having or doing, and the more we can let go, it's this ancient wisdom, the happier that we'll actually be, as we let go. And then we're letting go of the two real drivers, the fear and the desire, which you've kind of like skillfully said in your role, this, and beautifully articulated with the body. And if we look at the body, you'd know a lot more about this, but if we look at the body shutting down, and then not getting blood to the extremities, then we may have to have these taken off, amputated. So we're not taking care of the whole. And then if we expand that out into society and where we are right now with the stresses and strains we've got. So maybe we could just finish off with at that point, really, just to finish off, to say that yeah, how do you see the benefit that you've received from seeing yourself as not a separate entity, that you are more part of the collective?
That's it's a very deep question. Sum it up for me in one line, if you can.
So how have you gone from being a head of a department with all of these KPIs, working 14 hours a day, attached to those things, that you were attached to with your ski holidays, your golf holidays, and this notion of a kind of like maybe a happy life to where you are now?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that things, everything. I mean, I know I don't want to get caught in my own words. Okay, so I'll share this and know that it's imperfect.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
that everything has a cost, and if we want to uh, have these things, it's okay. And I don't think it's, is it okay to have these things? It's okay to have things, you know, and it's okay to recognize the desire to have things. But when we, number one, like if we, like, there's a classic about, oh, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy, I'll be able to rest when, so I am willing to sacrifice now. And I was a very classic person for, I'll sacrifice now for tomorrow. So if someone said to me, Mark, would you work 14 hours a day for the next 10 years, but I'll give you the rest of your life off, I would be like, that's a good investment. Okay, I'll work, and I could talk more about that because I very nearly, recently, with a very good friend, I very nearly did that very same thing. I sold 10 year. I considered selling 10 years of my life for a financial, for a security, for a something that somehow at the end of those 10 years, then I will be able to do what I really want. And there was, I mean, I think I remember sharing this. There was even in the negotiation, there was a tap on my shoulder from some other part of me, which was saying, Mark, are you sure? Can I get this clear? We are willing to sell the next 10 years, of our life, so that in 10 years time, then we can do what we want. And I was like, yeah, yeah, that seems about exactly what we're doing. And somehow it didn't work out. The kind of the bar that I set, for selling 10 years of my life wasn't met. So I stepped away. So it's okay to, um yeah, it's, what is the cost? What are we willing to sacrifice, in terms of our, if you're working 14 hours a day, you're going to sacrifice something. You're going to sacrifice taking the time to take care of your body. You're going to sacrifice, the um, time with your family. You're going to sacrifice many things. And it's not that, I mean, I often think about bees. You don't find bees kind of like, they go to you, and then they go, hey, hang on a second, it's 6 o'clock. Like, I'm gonna knock off for the day. It's like, this is my time. It's like, so somehow it's we need to be a little bit careful about what it is that we are trying to achieve, in a sense, or what it is that we. So when we talk about working 14 hours a day, or so sacrificing, somehow if the goal is, I don't even, I mean, it depends what we call work. It's like 14 hours a day. If we want to, I mean, if the Thich Nhat Hanh offered a lot of his energy, because his aspiration was very deep and very nourishing for him, so I don't even want to get caught in my own words, if you like, because when something is giving us energy, if we're selling something to something which takes our energy, well, this is a slightly different scenario. But if we're committing to something which is nourishing us, which is giving us energy, well, that is a wonderful thing. And it takes some stopping and looking and reflection, and to find out what it is that I want to offer my energy to, and is it something which is nourishing for me. And this is where we look at this duality. It doesn't have to be a one way system, where you're only offering and not receiving. And this is where we, again, I don't want to I don't want to go too deeply into, but the person offering and the person receiving, aren't quite as different as we think. But I'm going to stop there because I don't want to go
Yeah, no, no,
start
thanks for
again.
that. And it's like, it's what's coming up for me is like it's the awareness. It's like we keep talking about the awareness of, or the mindfulness of, continually. And I've seen your growth over the last 11 years, and it's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. I could listen to you, um, yeah, for many many hours, and there's still so much that's come up for me. But it's kind of like, to give ourselves this space and to be able to allow the awareness to be there, and to have this tap on the shoulder, to kind of go like, let me get this right, like you've just said. Am I willing to sacrifice 10 years of my life? And we see this in our, in our society. It's retirement. When I get to retirement, I'll be okay. But, somebody's had the best years of your life. Um, and when you get to retire, you may not even get to retirement. It's this sense of, as we know through these, again, this wisdom, it's this sense of almost like permanence. That it's like, when I get to retirement, then I can enjoy. But my body is maybe worn out by then. I may not be able to do the things that I imagine that I will be, will want to do. But because we're caught in this sense of permanence, when we look deeply, when you said, when we know, like when we stop and calm, and we can look deeply into how we wish to show up in the world, how we want to live our life, um, then those are those beautiful taps on the shoulder. Kind of go like, okay. And if we're supported along that path by, each other and community, um, yeah, we can, we can really make a big difference in the world. So yeah, I really want to thank you for your time, for your time, Mark. And we could, segue into so many different areas, into and which we will. So yeah, we'll be coming back for another video at some point. But thanks very much, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ian, as well for, as I say, yeah. If anyone, Ian is quite is maybe the heart of the driving heart of insect leadership. I think, in terms of what you offer and what you try and bring in, and So yeah, I wanted to express this the gratitude for yeah, for everything that you offer, and I know that it comes from a place of wanting to help. It comes from a place of wanting to offer, of having something that you think is helpful, that we know is helpful. Having, like, we talk about it in healthcare, we talk about the medicine. It's like, and Thich Nhat Hanh also talks about the medicine. So it's having, we have the medicine, and it's like, it's a question of how do we skillfully find where, how to formulate it. If that's a kind of not a too technical term, how to formulate the medicine that is, so it's appropriate, so that it's helpful. There's no point, you wouldn't take a cream, and try and eat it, because that's not a skillful use of cream. So it's about, when you have the something which is helpful, we need to find a way in order to offer it, in which it can work. So yeah, so thank you so much for all the energy and the time and the care that I see that you put into this, so that it can be helpful for people. you know
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's really why we're here, just to yeah, to share this deep wisdom from many many wisdom teachers, um, and because we're in this meta crisis of separation, and to try and bring, our consciousness alive to everything is connected, and we're part of that, and we can protect it, if we're skillful. So thanks for being part of the team, Mark. It's a privilege. Thanks, bro.